Okay, welcome to the last of the 12-part series of Tuesdays in the Boardroom, and we're going to be going through negotiation. This is the thing that most people in career transition causes, sweat, fear, trembling. This is when we frequently want to be held um, by God, and as we've discovered, God is in the wilderness and is with us as we negotiate and as we travel through this. Again, when we're negotiating, if we can remember that this particular job is most likely on our path, it may or may not be the answer. It may not be the actual opportunity, even if it looks shiny and fabulous up front. It's in this opportunity to dig that we discover, is this really the next step? It's definitely on the right path, and keeping that path thought is useful. Again, knowing that it's in this negotiation, it's in this path walking that we build our greatness. So the goal of getting the job is only a small part of what's happening in the wilderness. It's the transition and orienting ourselves to the path where we build strength. We've been talking about leveraging resources and tools, leading our families through this process. Interviewing is sometimes the first step in a negotiation. Sometimes it starts happening in the interview that suddenly you're moving into negotiation. So knowing that you're coming in with your right questions is as important as having the right answers. So how do we set the right conversational tone? Sean and I were just talking about one of the books that we highly recommend is Never Split the Difference. It's written by an FBI hostage negotiator. So every time he's having a negotiation, it's with crazy people. So if you can follow and do what he does with crazy people, then somebody who may seem daunting, like a potential hiring officer, is not as big a deal. But he talks about tactical empathy. And tactical empathy is understanding the feelings and mindset of another in the moment, and also hearing what's behind those feelings. So you increase your influence at all the moments that follow. It's bringing our attention to both the emotional obstacles and the potential pathways to getting an agreement done. It's emotional intelligence on steroids. So that's the conversational tone that you want to be able to set. And there's one more of the quotes that we really liked. As negotiators, we use empathy because it works. So it's actually effective empathy. Empathy is why the fugitives come out after 6 hours of negotiation, of using that late night DJ voice. It's what helped him succeed at what Sun Tzu called the supreme art of war, to subdue the enemy without fighting. So if we can understand that part of the conversational tone is our voice, and keeping a calm, cool DJ voice helps you feel calm and cool and sets the tone in the negotiation. Emotional intelligence and proven communications best practices can help you dance with the conversation and negotiate effectively to share a vision of the gig. It's all about talking with them about linking arms and solving the problems that they have, but you have to listen empathetically to actually unearth the problems they have in serving their clients. So you turn from looking at each other to looking together towards solving their problems. So Shonda, why don't you talk a little bit about mapping
Rachel,
out
if I could just add,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I just wanted to add one thing that you said there that I think is so poignant at this time, and it's really what we taught in our DISC assessments when we shared that debrief with all of you. If you're in an interview situation and you're on the opposite end of, let's say, the spectrum, if you're thinking of the D, I, S, and C, and you're interacting with someone who's literally on the opposite side, learning how to speak their language may very well be like switching into a DJ voice, being able to calm and lull whatever anxiety that person has about the changes that are about to happen to their organization as they bring new people on, whatever changes are going on behind the scenes that you aren't able to even hear because you're coming in there as a fresh human being from the outside who has not been there weathering the storm as that individual has, how important it is to keep that calm DJ voice going, to be for them to be able to hear you and not be overwhelmed by perhaps your pace, which might be faster than theirs, which may be much slower than theirs, whichever it is. But recognizing whoever's in front of you is setting the race. Imagine like in a marathon, someone is the pace maker. They're literally creating what pace is seen as welcome, is seen as calming. That's what we're suggesting you to follow and to use as your guiding light as you enter into that negotiation process through the interview and into the actual negotiation piece of that to land the job. So yes, and now to mapping out conversations before they happen. This is such a big element that's very important for us to recognize. What are the potential deal killers, right? We definitely, everyone has them. We aren't always open about them. So this is a chance for you to reflect and think about for your counterpart, what are we trying to accomplish in the moment? What is it that we want at the end of this interview to have? What box do we want to make sure is ticked and checked? Is it to actually place this to know whether or not you have the job or not? Or is it just to know that you are still on the list of consideration, right? These are the questions. And how is it worthwhile to accomplish it, right? How will we get there, right? For your counterpart. Again, thinking about their perspective is really critical. Not that we're purely in the WIFM phase. WIFM, WIIFM, what's in it for me, right? And this is where we tend to be. We tend to live in the WIFM state of mind. But when we enter into negotiation, it's like building a bridge. We need both sides and their needs to be heard. That's the empathy piece that Rachel was just talking about. Without empathy, we cannot tune in to what the other side needs from us in that moment. So it's critical, in fact. It's extremely important beyond, right? Cubed. What is the core issue for this person? What are they trying to solve? What problem is it that this job has been designed to solve? If you're not tuning in to that message, then you can't solve it, right? You need to have the ability to listen deeply, right? Empathetically, right? With full ears and attention, not just waiting to get your plug in about how great you are and how wonderful you are and all the experiences. I know that's in the background, and that's hard sometimes to quiet those thoughts. But in order for us to really meet them in the middle and to be able to dance with them without stepping on toes, we have to truly slow ourselves down, take a deep breath, and listen wholeheartedly with two ears, not one. There's a reason God gave us two ears and only one mouth, right? So how does that affect things? How does this fit into what the objective is? All these are really good questions for them to think about, for you to think about for them, right? And to identify behind the table deal killers. So be listening, have your antenna stretched out fully, trying to pick up on what could I be doing that might be setting this person off. It could be a sucking through the teeth that you hear. It could be just if it's on a Zoom, like a crossing of the arms. Look for that neuro linguistic programming, that NLP. Anytime that you're seeing body language that seems defensive, don't ignore it. Take stock of what's happening. What are you saying at that moment when they react in that way, right? Human beings are fascinating, but if we don't pay attention to what's going on, we're missing cues and clues that could be critical in whether or not we successfully negotiate or not, right? So how on board are the people with what you're saying, right? Do they seem to be really with you? Are they nodding? Or are they giving you verbal feedback like, uh-huh, mm-hmm? Or are they silent, completely silent? What's happening in that situation? What do your colleagues see as their main challenges in this area? Asking the question to be able to figure it out. What a great direct way of getting feedback, right? Is to ask the question. So all of these are really critical in order for you to be able to know what you're up against, in order for them to be able to trust you to share that, you have to set the stage, right? So it's up to you to be that. Literally, you're creating the scenery, you're creating the props, you're creating that stage setting for it to be a successful negotiation or a one-sided one, which never works, right? So this is what we need. And having words to be able to describe it. It seems like you're going through a really challenging time right now and you're looking for someone who can solve this specific marketing issue. This seems to be really important. Have I got you right? Right? Paraphrasing, asking them to confirm or deny what you have walked away with in that moment is critical to see if you have alignment to be able to move forward, right? And of course, there's more than just money at stake here, right? There are non-cash offers that are certainly as just as important that you can consider that could have an issue, could be just as valuable to you about time flexibility, about hybrid work opportunities. All of these are things to think about, not to be stuck on, just one, let's say, the way it was done in your past job, but realizing that there might be some other combination that works for this particular employer that they might be willing to allow you to fill in their gap and fill in the hole that's needed there at that certain time. So being open-minded, but also tuning in.
All right. You saw we picked up one of the books that we highly recommend is the Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference. It's funny, it's simple, but it really does give you a lot of tips and tools to be able to develop the main take, negotiators must be active listeners, be a mirror. So here we've done the main takeaways for each of these books, so you can see which ones might really call to you. All of them have models or approaches that can help you in this process. So we wanted to share with you. This So Good They Can't Ignore You is a really great book and basically talks about what skills do you have that they just can't ignore you. So in the wilderness, being able to look and see, maybe this is a time to get, yes, one more degree, one more certification, one more, workshop that you can talk about having completed, because as they begin hearing all their boxes being checked, it doesn't matter if you've got on the wrong shirt that day or some other prejudice that they may have. If you've got all these boxes checked, they can't ignore you. So that's a very good book. Crucial Conversations, these tools, when the stakes are high, using state, share the facts, tell your story, ask for their story and assumptions, talk tentatively. Your assumptions are not facts. Encourage testing. So each of these books, I highly recommend, whether you listen to them on audio or you read them yourself, having that part refreshed, because generally people are not aware of their negotiations at the level of a job opportunity. They're negotiating over, who's going to go to the grocery store this week, or they're negotiating other smaller items. But these high stake negotiations require really mindfulness, and these books are excellent. And after all that enlightenment, doing the laundry, and what's meant by this is that no matter how much preparation you do intellectually, you got to work on the basics, including doing actually the laundry, making sure that you're dressed and everything's clean. I mean, there's just the basics. It also sometimes is helpful to get out of your head and into the physical day-to-day as you go through the wilderness. Well, we are here at April 27th, where we said that we were going to do boardroom reunion and networking. We also combined it with negotiating skills this time. We wanted to make y'all aware that we're going to have 2 workshops coming up, one on May 13th and one on June 23rd. That's basically productive conflict, which is this negotiation piece. When 2 people come to a T and one wants to go left and one wants to go right, immediately you have an opportunity to have a conversation. How does it become productive? We've called it the Bless Their Hearts Masterclass because we're Southern and there's really something about Southerners and the way that we do our negotiations that keep things kind of smooth. So we highly recommend anybody that has gone through any of these classes with us to look at this workshop. Because it really summarizes a lot of what has already been discovered through the DISC introduction to really dig into how do you negotiate and how do you bring negotiation into every step in your wilderness so that you're making sure you're actually doing your wilderness walk. And once again, as we complete this series, we are always here to help. I want everybody to feel very comfortable with emailing, direct messaging. We really want to be here to help you even after we've finished the cohort. And as I said, we've got the workshop that's coming up, but there are other tools that we have that we can work with you to be able to map out 90 days before you get the job, and we work with people once they've gotten the job for 90 days. So thank you for your time listening. Now we're going to do the fun part where we dig in and have the conversation. So we're going to stop the share and I'm going to stop the recording.